your Bibles to 1 Kings chapter 1. So I'm really excited. We are starting a new series. Both Sunday morning we started a new series, and now Wednesday evenings we're starting a new series. We're going through 1st and 2nd Kings, and so we'll be doing this for a good while. About a month or two ago, we finished 2nd Samuel, so we're just picking up right where we left off. But this is pretty cool. I want to start with a verse that should be very familiar because we literally talked about it Sunday morning, but it's Romans 1 through 4. And it says this: Paul, a servant of Christ, called as an apostle to set apart for the gospel of God, which he promised beforehand through his prophets in the Holy Scriptures, concerning his Son, Jesus Christ our Lord, who was a descendant of David according to the flesh, and was appointed to be the powerful Son of God according to the Spirit of holiness by the resurrection of the dead. And so, two words I highlighted. One, his prophets. This book, this section, is where the prophets, majority of them, are hanging out. And so we are going to, over the next several months, be learning about his prophets. And also, the descendant of David, we are going to start tonight by talking about David and basically his final days and then his descendants. And so right here, what Paul talked about, introed there in Romans, is what we're learning about here on Wednesday night. So just a cool connection there and overlap. And so, I'm excited to go through and just look at what it has, or what these books have in store for us. So pretty cool. I want to start though by doing a quick recap overview of 1st and 2nd Kings. Let's just get an idea. We're going to zoom way out and look from the International Space Station at this book, and then we'll zoom in and look at it from your hand. But yes, just an overview. The books of 1st and 2nd Kings function as a single continuous narrative, picking up where the book of Samuel left off. They document about a 400-year history of Israel's monarchy, beginning with the death of King David and ending with the destruction of Jerusalem and the Babylonian exile. It's broken up into three sections, or these two books are broken up into three sections pretty commonly. So the first 11 chapters of 1 Kings are known as the time of the United Kingdom. This isn't the UK that's over across the pond. This is a different United Kingdom. But this details the reign of David's son Solomon. So the kingdoms were united. It's the 12 tribes of Israel were all together through Saul, and then David, and then Solomon. And that's known as the United Kingdom. But then the next section, starting in 1 Kings chapter 12 and ending in 2 Kings chapter 17, this is known as the time of the divided kingdom. This is where the kingdom divides. So after Solomon's death, his son Rehoboam, the harshness of his leadership leads to a civil war. The nation splits into two kingdoms. You have the northern kingdom known as Israel. That's comprised of 10 tribes, led first by Jeroboam. They established their own centers of worship and have like golden calves, which just throws you back to the 10 Commandments and the base of Mount Sinai. Not good stuff. And all of this leading to a legacy of total apostasy. They have a total of about 19 kings, and throughout we're going to look at the rating system of were they good, were they bad. Spoiler alert, every single one of them bad. 0 for 19. That's a 0% on the test. You didn't even try. You didn't even show up on that test. Like, that's bad. Judah is then the southern kingdom. That's comprised of two tribes. That's Judah and Benjamin, and that's led by the line of the king of David. So starting there, and they're centered in Jerusalem, and they have 20 kings thereabout, and 8 out of these 20 kings are good. But for those of you math whizzes, that's still just a 40% on the test. I used to be a teacher. If you got a 40%, still a fail. Better than a 0, but yeah. So both kingdoms, double fail. Not good. And during this chaotic time, I just mentioned the prophets. God raises up prophets to act as covenant watchdogs. The most prominent are Elijah and Elisha. They perform miracles and confront wicked kings and call the people back to true worship in God. And then the last section is the fall of the kingdoms. That is 2 Kings chapters 18 through 25. And so you have the fall of Israel, the northern kingdom. That happens in about 722 BC. After centuries of idolatry and ignoring the prophets, the northern kingdom is conquered and deported by the Assyrian Empire. And then the fall of Judah, the southern kingdom, is in 586 BC, thereabout. And despite periods of reform under good kings like Hezekiah and Josiah, Judah eventually follows in the footsteps of the northern kingdom. The Babylonians destroy the temple and take the people into exile. And so that's this book. I will say, though, 2 King ends on a very interesting note, but a subtle note of hope. So the Davidic king Jehoiakim is released from prison in Babylon, and this just hints that God has not forgotten his promise of a true king from the line of David. And so it's just one liner, one sentence, like, and this guy was released. And it's like, okay. But like it harkens and just brings to mind the hope. There is still hope. It reminds me of A New Hope. Obi-Wan, Jesus Christ, you're my only hope. And so, yeah, that is kind of an overview. I will say, you can't see this, but you can. TheBibleProject.com has an excellent 9-minute video that summarizes this very well. Highly recommend you check that out. Not now, on your own time. Go to the Bible Project, YouTube, or their website, and watch that. It's great. So tonight we're going to explore 3 key themes. One is the danger of presumption. So we're going to look at this guy named Adonijah and how he attempts to crown himself king, and just the spiritual dangers of getting ahead of God. Also, we're going to look at the courage of Nathan and Bathsheba, how God uses these 2 faithful individuals to speak truth to power, and how to properly bring awareness to an issue. And then lastly, we're going to look at how God is starting to establish this new kingdom. We will see the transition of the man of war, which is David, to the man of peace, which is Solomon. And so that's what we're looking at tonight. But let's start with some prayer. God, I thank you just for your word. I thank you for this testimony and these stories, God, that we have them to learn from and to observe and just take note. And so, God, I pray that we can see this. I pray that we can understand how Israel often was putting their hope in these men, and they were often letting them down. But God, we need to put our hope in you. You are the only one who will not fail us. You will not let us down. You are faithful. And so I thank you for that. I pray that we can just stand firmly on you, the rock. God, while the rest of the world is sinking sand, you are the one that remains and the one that will hold us steady and true. And so help us learn that, help us see that, and just stay rooted and founded in you. Help us abide in you. And so we just give this time over to you and pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so we just zoomed out. Oops, didn't mean to press that. We just zoomed out. Now we're going to zoom in and get a more detailed understanding of what's going on. So it starts 1 Kings chapter 1, verse 1. David in his old age. It says this. Now King David was old, advanced in age, and they covered him with garments, but he could not keep warm. I just say, when I start reading this, sorry, it's just like, it just goes right into it. There's no like intro. I just gave you an intro, like, hey, this is what happened, but they're just like, hey, David's old and he can't keep warm. It's like, shoo, okay. We're just going to hop right into it. All right. So yeah, he's old. Well, we'll get to that. So his servant said to him, have them search for a young virgin for my lord the king, and have her attend the king and become his nurse, and have her lie on your chest, so that my lord the king may keep warm. Okay, well, it's just, this is the most interesting first 4 verses of any book. You start reading this book, you're like, what am I reading? Anyway, so they searched for a beautiful girl. Why the girl had to be beautiful, I'll leave that up to you. Throughout the territory of Israel, and found Abishag the Shunammite, and brought her to the king. The girl was indeed very beautiful, so they succeeded. And she became the king's nurse and served him, but the king did not become intimate with her. Okay, like I said, this is a very strange start. But what we have here is David in his last days. Just a couple of things we can glean from this. One, he's old and frail and not doing well. Now, when I say he's old and frail, don't be offended. He's only about 70, But back in those days, 70 was old, all right? I mean, think about David. He was like a warrior. He was on the run from Saul for many years. Like, he lived a very hard life. And they didn't have the luxuries of modern medicine and modern nutrition. Like, he couldn't get his knees replaced, his shoulders replaced, his elbows replaced, his hips replaced, his brain replaced like we can. You got something broken, you just die, right? For the most part. And so being 70 was impressive. And so he was having a hard time keeping warm. Back then, they also didn't have electric blankets, right? So they used humans, which was I looked into it. This is a normal practice. This isn't a king like abusing his power and just being like weird and stuff. This was like pretty common. Still, in my opinion, weird. Personally, if it was me, I'd just give me a big fluffy dog and let me cuddle with that guy and leave the human out of it. I have a big fluffy dog. I'd cuddle with that guy. I like cuddling with my wife, but I also have a big fluffy dog. Fluffy Nugget, is that what my son calls it? Fluff Nugget? That's it, Fluff Nugget. I would cuddle with Fluff Nugget. But that's just me. I will say, at this point in David's life, he does have 8 wives and 10 concubines, so what's one more, right? And to that point, this is the other thing I would point out, is that this is an important bit of information that we need to remember for the coming chapters, because it is believed that David made Abishag one of his concubines, which would set her apart as a king's concubine, meaning only another king could take her as a concubine or marry her after David's passing. And so, if you remember Abner, there was that whole scuttlebutt with Abner and Saul's concubine, where Abner was accused of taking Saul's concubine. He was like, whoa, I didn't do that. And it's like, why was that such a big deal? Because those are set apart for kings and only kings. And so remember that it's believed that Abishag is taken as one of David's concubines. However, like I said, he was not intimate with her. Good on you, David. You're old enough. You're so old you can't even keep yourself warm. You better not be getting frisky with this little young lady. So that's kind of weird. But anyway, I digress. We're done with the first 4 verses. Now we can move into something less awkward. Out of the way. But just remember, keep that in your mind. This is where David is. Actually, this is important. That is where David is. David is basically in his bed, trying to keep warm, trying to stay alive, cuddling with his new buddy Abishag. And that, when the rest of this stuff is going on, that's what he's doing, just because he's old. So, verse 5, it says, Adonijah, the son of Haggith, exalted himself. So, who is Adonijah? We read about this a long time ago. If you went through 1st and 2nd Samuel with us, it listed all of David's sons. Adonijah is one of David's sons. His oldest son was Amnon. Then the next one, it seems, was Absalom. And then he had another one named Daniel or Chileab. We only hear about him once when he's born, and then we never hear about him again. So it's assumed that he dies at some point when he's young. And so he's seemingly out of the picture. So Adonijah would be the next oldest son. And it says that he exalted who? He exalted himself, saying, I will be king. So he prepared for himself chariots and horsemen. Who is doing all the exalting and all this stuff? Him. For who? Him. It's not God doing this. It's not a prophet. It's not David. It's no one else. It's just he sees an opportunity and he's moving in. He's like, oh, my dad's old and here's my time to get the crown and get the throne, so I'm moving in. Interestingly, it says the very next thing, with 50 men to run before him. Do you guys remember that play? Someone else tried to run that play before, going ahead with 50 men. Absalom, right? 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 1. This was exactly what Absalom did when he started his revolution or conspiracy, was taking men and exalting himself. And we'll see that his end, spoiler alert, turns out pretty much the same as Absalom, just without the war and all that stuff. But yeah, so he was doing that. And it says, verse 6, that his father David had never rebuked him at any time. So again, we see the wonderful parenting of David. David was, you could give him the benefit of the doubt that he was out being a king and fighting battles and writing poems and singing songs, that he was too busy being a king or being a father. However, that's one of the most important roles that any man has in their life. If you have children, raise them, right? Unfortunately, he did not do that. He was a poor father. one of David's sons will right in the future train a child up in the way that he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. Well, David trained these children up in a not good way, and when they got old, they didn't depart from it, and it leads to a lot of family distress and a lot of not good stuff. So parents, train your children, discipline your children. This is an act of love. By not disciplining your children, you are not showing them love. Now, reasonable discipline, but we need to be disciplining our children and training them. Anyway, and it said, never rebuked him by asking, why have you done so? And it also says that he was a very handsome man. It seems like all of David's sons are handsome. And he was born after Absalom, meaning he is, again, just alluding to he's the next oldest. He is the oldest son, which you could ask, why then is Solomon supposed to be the next king if he's the oldest? Well, nowhere in the Bible does it say like the oldest son is the next in line to the throne. You do have the firstborn son getting an inheritance and a special blessing. That's different than the throne, and so just note that. But that's what the other pagan cultures did with their kings, but that isn't necessarily the case or what has to be with God's kingdom and with Israel. And so it said this, verse 7, now he had conferred with Joab, interesting character, the son of Zeruiah, and Abiathar the priest, and they allied themselves with Adonijah. Now, did they do this in ignorance, or did they do this for other reasons? I don't know. It doesn't say. We just know that they're picking sides with the not anointed or promised king. Solomon at this point is, in my opinion and understanding, very clearly understood to be the next king and who should be in line. And so why Joab and Abiathar go off with Adonijah, I don't know, but not good. But verse 8, Zadok the priest, Benaiah the son of Joadiah, Nathan the prophet, Shimei, Rei, and the mighty men who belonged to David were not with Adonijah. You can read about them. We talked about them towards the end of 2 Samuel. It details the mighty men and a lot of these guys that were just mentioned. And it says this, verse 9, Adonijah sacrificed sheep, oxen, and fattened steers by the stone of Zoheleth, which is beside Enrogel. Now, when I was reading this, Enrogel popped in my brain because that's a place that has popped up a few times. And I'm like, man, what is the significance of an Enrogel? To my understanding, I could be wrong, I couldn't find anything else, but to my understanding, Enrogel is a place outside of town that's by a stream that's kind of secretive and clandestine, meaning the other time that I really know that this place is mentioned is when Absalom takes over Jerusalem and David is fleeing and outside, and David has some spies, and the spies are to report to David what's going on. The place where they're to report is Enrogel, and so it's this kind of discreet, clandestine spot. And so this is where Adonijah goes to anoint himself and crown himself king, is this out of the city, out of the way, secretive spot, right? If he was the proper king, he would be doing this in the town square in the middle of his kingdom and saying, hey guys, and everyone would be like, yeah, and they'd be doing these sacrifices at the tabernacle and all that stuff, right? I would assume, but clearly it seems like they're trying to do some shady business here on the side. So they're at Enrogel. Not that Enrogel is a bad place. And again, it could be a sacred place. I just don't know about it. But to my understanding, it's just a place off to the side of town. It's like those spy movies where you see the spy and somebody else like meet like by a bridge, by a river, like in the obscure part of town. Seems like that's where they're meeting right now. It says this, and he invited all his brothers, the king's sons, and all the men of Judah and the king's servants, but he did not invite Nathan the prophet, Benaiah, the mighty men, or his brothers, or his brother Solomon. So again, tons of people came to this secret meeting, it seems. This, I will say, is a wonderful reminder to watch out for self-exaltation. We see how Adonijah gets himself into a lot of trouble in the future by making some unsubstantiated presumptions here. An application point that we can put into our lives. We can do this too by getting ahead of God. There are several stories in the Bible of people doing this to their own peril. That does not mean that God can't work things out for the good and make good of those things. But if the best way, in my opinion, is to either walk with God and do things with God, or to follow God and go behind God and do that. When we get ahead of God and try to make things happen, and then we end up making this massive mess. We're like, dear God, I made a massive mess, please clean it up. Like, that's not the best way to do it. Don't get ahead of God. Don't try to force God's hand. Don't try to do these things. We need to walk with God or follow behind God and go with him. And so Adonijah here, it seems, is trying to force God's hand and do things his own way and make things happen. Doesn't work out well. We will find out. We'll learn from those choices. Also, I will just say this. Consider the contrast here between Adonijah's self-exaltation with the way that Jesus entered his kingdom. Adonijah is appointing himself and doing all these things and coming in glory. We just finished Christmas. You guys know how Jesus came in, right? Humble. Very humble. Even when he entered in Jerusalem right before in the last week, humble. Very humble. And so, not self-exalting. So anyway, verse 11, we got Nathan and Bathsheba. So it says this, Then Nathan spoke to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, saying, Have you not heard that Adonijah, the son of Haggith, has become king, and David our Lord does not know it? Again, David is off snuggling his new cuddle buddy, Abishag, and staying warm, and so he is out of the picture, kind of unaware of what's going on, it seems. Again, he's super old, and that's why. But David is unaware of these things. And so Nathan goes to Bathsheba and is like, hey, this isn't good. It says this, verse 12, So now come, please, let me give you advice and save your life and the life of your son Solomon. Right? What Nathan is saying here is, hey, Adonijah knows that Solomon's supposed to be the king. And if Adonijah takes the the throne, he is absolutely going to get rid of any resistance, any sort of threat to the throne instantly. We see that Solomon actually does this same thing with the guidance of David. But it's Publishers Clearinghouse of let's just get all the bad out. And so you better believe that Solomon is going to be the first one to go. And then his mom, who's probably going to not be too pleased, would probably be on the chopping block as well. Both of them gone. And so if Adonijah becomes king, you better believe they're both out of the picture. And so it says this, Go at once to King David and say to him, Have you not let my lord the king, have you not, my lord the king, sworn to your servant, saying, Solomon, your son, certainly shall be king after me, and he shall sit on my throne. Why then has Adonijah become king? Behold, while you are still speaking, they're speaking with the king, I will come in after you and confirm these words. And so they hatch a plan. Bathsheba's going to go in first and talk and give the account, and then Nathan's going to come in right afterwards, give the same account. Both accounts are true, they're going to talk to David. I will say this, a question that popped into my brain is, where in the Bible does God tell David that Solomon should be the next king? We didn't necessarily cover this because it's kind of obscure, I will say, in 1st and 2nd Samuel. But in 2nd Samuel, chapter 12, verse 24, it says, Then David comforted his wife Bathsheba. Real quick, I highlighted wife because this is just an interesting story. This is all in the midst of David's affair with Bathsheba and killing Uriah. But all the way up before this, every time Bathsheba is referenced, it's Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah. And it's the wife of Uriah. Even after Uriah dies, David takes Bathsheba as his wife, but she is still known as the wife of Uriah all the way up until their child, the child that David and she conceived in this adulterous meeting. Until that child passes, this is when David goes and then comforts, and it says this is the first time that Bathsheba is called his wife, David's wife. Very interesting. After the sin is kind of dealt with and taken care of. But his wife Bathsheba, and went into her and slept with her, and she gave birth to a son, and he named him Solomon. So, we'll talk about that. Now the Lord loved him and sent word through Nathan the prophet, and he named him Jedediah for the Lord's sake. This is one of those verses that, like, you blink and you miss it. In fact, when we went through it on Wednesday night, we basically just read it and moved on. But this is pretty rich, and we need to dive in, so that's why we're circling back. The name Jedediah means beloved of the Lord, meaning this is the one, this is the guy, this is the son right here, this is the anointed one, basically, beloved of the Lord. Nowhere else, it says that he's named Jedediah, but nowhere else does it ever refer to him as Jedediah. It's always Solomon, but right here it's like, hey, That one, he's beloved of the Lord. Now, Solomon means son of peace, which is derived from the Hebrew word shalom, which means peace. But I will say this, in 1 Chronicles 22, 7 through 10, this is David recounting when he wanted to build the temple in 2 Samuel chapter 7, and he's like, I'm going to build the temple. And Nathan's like, go for it. And then God's like, hey, you shouldn't tell him that. And so he goes back, and God tells him, hey, you're not going to build it. This is David recounting to Solomon that encounter. And we get some more details that aren't in 2 Samuel chapter 7, namely Solomon's name and specifically mentioning him and why David isn't to build the temple. So it says this, David said to Solomon, my son, I had intended to build a house for the name of the Lord my God, but the word of the Lord came to me, saying, you have shed much blood and have waged great wars. You shall not build a house to my name, because you have shed so much blood on the earth before me. Behold, a son will be born to you, and he shall be a man of rest, peace, right? And he will give, and I will give him rest from all his enemies on every side, for his name will be Solomon, son of peace. And I will give him peace and quiet to Israel in his days. And he shall build a house for my name, and he shall be my son, and I will be his father, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever. This is going to play a huge role in the coming chapters, but just remember that is where God told specifically David, and David now is telling Solomon, hey, God told me that you are going to be the next king. And so Bathsheba and Nathan, they know this, and so that's why they're saying, hey, David, God told you that, we need to talk. So now they're going to go and execute their plan. So here we go. We're going to fly through this next section because it's just like very redundant, but let's go. So Bathsheba entered to the king in the bedroom, and now the king was very old, and Abishag the Shunammite was serving the king. Remember, this is what he's doing. Then Bathsheba bowed and prostrated herself before the king, a sign of respect, a sign of you are the authority, I'm not a threat, you are in charge. Bowing and prostrating. And said to the king, the king said, what is on your mind? Verse 17. So she said to him, my lord, you yourself swore to your servant by the Lord your God, saying, your son Solomon certainly shall be king after me, and he shall sit on my throne. But now, behold, Adonijah is king, and now, my lord the king, you do not know it. Again, you've been kind of tied up. You're old, you're frail, you don't know what's going on. This is what's going on. Adonijah has crowned himself king. Now, this isn't saying that he's actually king. This is king in the same sense that Absalom crowned himself king and was like a pretend king and was masquerading as king but wasn't actually king. Again, Adonijah is playing the same playbook. He got his older brother's playbook. He's like, oh, this seemed to work well. It didn't. But he's running the same play. So Adonijah is king. Verse 19, he has sacrificed oxen and fattened steers and sheep in abundance, and has invited all the sons of the king, Abiathar the priest, Joab the commander of the army, but he has not invited Solomon your servant. As for you, my lord the king, the eyes of all Israel are upon you, to announce to them who shall sit on the throne of my lord the king after him. Otherwise it will come about, as soon as my lord the king lies down with his fathers, that I and my son Solomon will be considered offenders, aka dead. And so what she is saying here is, hey, you need to go and tell the people, set the people straight. You need to announce whether Adonijah is actually king or he's not king, and you have other plans. But if you don't say anything and you go and lie down with the fathers, which is die, then it's just going to be assumed that Adonijah is the rightful heir and the rightful king, and that's not going to be good, because God told you that Solomon is the next king and needs to be the next king. So you need to do something about this, David. And so that's the plan. And just according to their plan, it says in verse 22, now behold, while she was still speaking with the king, Nathan the prophet came in. So Bathsheba leaves, Nathan comes in, and they inform the king, saying, Nathan the prophet is here. When he came into the king's presence, he prostrated himself, bowed down, again saying, you are in charge, I'm not a threat, you have the authority here. Before the king, with his face to the ground. Then Nathan said, my lord the king, have you yourself said, he's asking a question like, David, did you say this, that Adonijah will be king after me? That Adonijah will be king after me, and he shall sit on my throne? Question mark. Like, did you say that Adonijah's the next king? Because if so, I missed it. For he has gone down today, and he has sacrificed oxen and fattened calves and sheep in the abundance, and has invited the king's sons and the commanders of the army and Abiathar the priest, and behold, they are eating and drinking in the presence, and they say, long live King Adonijah. But me, even me, your servant, Zadok the priest, Benaiah the son of Joadiah, and your servant Solomon, he is not invited. We got left out. They got some FOMO going on here. Fear of missing out. They're like, man, we're missing. No, that's not what's going on here. It's like clearly a conspiracy to leave out the important people who are in the know and have authority, and to usurp and go around and circumvent. And that's exactly what's going on here. And so, verse 27, has this thing been done by my lord the king, and have you not let your servants know who shall sit on the throne of my lord after the king? So he's just saying, like, hey, did you change your mind, or did something else come about and we just don't know this? Because if so, let me know. But if not, you need to know what's going on. And so I will say Nathan here is being somewhat coy with the king by being a little bit playful, like, hey, David, did you change your mind? But I will say this, he knows that David did not decide these things, but instead of telling David what to do, he lets David come to the conclusion on his own. And this is an excellent tactic when we are trying to change someone's mind on a matter. This is a great tool in apologetics by asking questions. And so what you do is, instead of just simply telling someone what to think or believe, like, you don't walk up to someone and be like, you need to believe in Jesus or you're going to hell. You can say that, but instantly walls go up, guards go up. They're like, whoa, I don't even believe any of that stuff. But if you go and ask good questions like, hey, what are your thoughts on the afterlife? Like, when you die, what's going to happen? Hey, what are your thoughts? Like, how did we all get here? Where did we come from? Like, they need to have those very simple questions, but very deep questions, good, solid answers to those questions. And if they don't, then you help them and lead them and guide them to the truth, which is the Bible and Christian theology. And so you ask those leading questions. But if you just go up and say, tell them facts, they're going to instantly put up walls. But here's the thing. You ask leading questions to guide someone to the conclusion on their own. And I put on their own in little air quotes here because it's actually you that's guiding them to the conclusion, but you're asking them questions, and so they have their guard down, and it seems like they came to that conclusion on their own, which in many ways they did, but you're just guiding them to that conclusion. And again, this is a very powerful tactic and is very helpful in apologetics and stuff like that. It can be abused, so don't abuse it. Use it wisely. And here Nathan shows how it can be used in a positive way. He's asking questions like, hey, David, instead of just going in and saying, David, you didn't say this, like, what is going on? And just pointing fingers, he's like, David, here's what's going on. Like, is that true? Is that what you said, or am I missing something? And here we go. We see the response of David and how that tactic works. So 28. Then King David responded and said, summon Bathsheba to me. So Bathsheba comes back in, and then Nathan comes back in, and, well, actually, it's just Bathsheba at this moment. Nathan leaves. And she came into the king's presence and stood before the king, and the king vowed and said, as my Lord lives, or as the Lord lives, who has redeemed my life from all distress, certainly as I vowed to you by the Lord, the God of Israel, saying, your son Solomon certainly shall be king after me, and he shall sit on my throne in my place. I will indeed do so this day. This is going to happen today. It's going down today. We're not going to dilly. We're not going to dally. It's happening today. And so 31, then Bathsheba bowed with her face to the ground and prostrated herself before the king and said, may my lord the king David live forever. Then King David said, summon Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Adonijah the son of Joadiah, and they came into the king's presence. And the king said to them, take with you the servants of your lord, and have my son Solomon ride on my own mule and bring him down to Gihon. So again, they're putting him on his mule, which is only the king rides the king's mule. So by Solomon sitting on the king's mule, that's David's blessing. They're going to know that's David's mule, and Solomon is sitting on it. So Solomon must have the king's blessing. 34, and have Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anoint him there as king over Israel, and blow the trumpet and say, long live King Solomon. So did you notice what happened there? David, again, was moved to action. They asked good questions, good leading questions, and David was moved to action. But how, or why, or by whom? It was by Nathan and Bathsheba. They saw something wrong going down, and they raised their voices to bring awareness. And so let's look at really quick, how exactly did they do that? One, they spoke facts. They didn't give half-truths. They didn't twist the story. They didn't tell lies. They just spoke the truth. We need to be very aware and discerning when someone is trying to motivate you to action or change your mind. Know the story. Know the facts. There's some stuff going on in the news that if you saw one video on day one, you're like, oh man, that's bad. Then you see more videos and you're like, oh, that's a completely different story. That changes the narrative. Like, maybe I shouldn't be all mad and we need as Christians to wait and know the facts, know the story, be slow to act, quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry, right? I'm pretty sure that's a Bible verse. I could be wrong. Maybe James said that. I don't know. James chapter 1, 16 and 17. Check it out. But that's what we need to do. And so know the facts. The twisting of the truth is a tactic that's been the tactic of the liar from the beginning, the serpent in the garden. Did God really say? And then following that up with half-truths and affirming half-truths. And that led to the fall of humanity. And so it still happens today. We need to do our research. We need to do our homework. We need to be aware. Next, number 2, they were peaceful and respectful. They didn't go in and start yelling at David and name-calling and pointing fingers and saying, David, you dropped the ball. You're the worst. How can you do this? They walked in, and they didn't start a mostly peaceful protest on David's front door. Instead, they went in, and we see them bowing before David, showing him great respect, and they used their words to help David see the facts. And last, they were bold and courageous. Now, these two individuals were very close and beloved by David, and so that makes it somewhat easier sometimes. But I will say, sometimes we are called to have courageous conversations with people and address topics that might be uncomfortable. But we need to do these things. They didn't dilly and dally. They went straight to David. They addressed the matter post-haste. Post-haste is one of my favorite words. Immediately, without hesitation, they went and just addressed the matter. And so, again, how do you raise awareness? Really quick, speak the facts, be peaceful and respectful, and be bold and courageous. That does not mean that we have to do that every single time, but that is, in general, a very good strategy. And the strategy that the Bible really promotes often. And so that's what they did, and it seems to work very well. So moving on, verse 35. It says this, then you shall come up after him, and he shall come and sit on my throne. This is David still speaking about Solomon and what Solomon is going to do. And he shall be king in my place, for I have appointed him to be ruler over Israel and Judah. Benaiah the son of Joadiah answered the king and said, Amen, which is just, let it be so. May the Lord, the God of my Lord, the king, say the same. Just as the Lord has been with the Lord, there's so many lords here and kings, and it gets confusing. Just as the Lord has been been with my Lord the king, so may he be with Solomon, and make his throne greater than the throne of my Lord King David. Now, I love that. Really quick, let's just hit on that. Make his throne greater. This should be the desire, goal, and duty of every single parent, to make their children greater than them in every single way. I, as a father, I have 2 sons, and I want my 2 sons to be better than me in every single way. Areas that I excel, I want them to excel and be awesome. Areas where I fail, I want them to not fail and be awesome. I want my children to be better than me and greater than me in every single way. Sadly, we live in a sinful and fallen world where children are often seen as burdens and disposable at times. And that is so sad. And that is not how it should be. Children are a blessing, and we need to see them as a blessing and treat them as a blessing. And so understand the importance of that. And so moving on, 38, Solomon anointed king. So Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Benaniah the son of Joadiah, the Cherethites, the Pelethites, went down and had Solomon ride on King David's mule and brought him to Gihon. So David said it, now they're doing it. And Zadok the priest then took the horn of oil from the tent and anointed Solomon. And they blew the trumpet, and all the people said, "Long live King Solomon." And all the people went up after him, and the people were playing flutes and rejoicing with great joy, so that the earth shook at their noise. This was a big party. It was going down. Now, just an interesting little tidbit here. It seems that, remember when David's like, today this is going down. It seems like this was a rushed thing. You could correlate this to maybe like a shotgun wedding or a very rushed wedding where it's like, hey, let's go get married today. And then it's like, and then in a little bit we'll have an actual ceremony. We see in 1 Chronicles 29 that it says, and they made Solomon the son of David king a second time. And so we see that, and it doesn't note that here in Kings, but it seems as though he had another anointing and another celebration, maybe with the proper rituals and proper things going on. Not that this was improper, but they had another one. So just a fun little fact there. But yeah, there was great rejoicing nonetheless, and the earth was shaking. It says this in 41, now Adonijah and all his guests who were with him heard this, and they finished eating. When I see finished eating, it just makes me think that I don't know what's going on, but they're not really caring just yet, right? They're careless about, or they're not concerned. But it says this, when Joab heard the sound of the trumpet, he said, what is the city making such an uproar? Or why is the city making such an uproar? While he was still speaking, behold, Jonathan, the son of Abiathar, the priest, came. Then Adonijah said, come in, for you are a valiant man, and you bring good news, the gospel, right? You are bringing good news. What? Tell me the good news. I hear rejoicing. You guys probably heard that I'm king. Come on in. Tell me the good news. But Jonathan said to Adonijah, actually, on the contrary, our Lord King David made Solomon king today. So, oops, that's not you. Not good news. You're not going to like that. And we see just this. It says, the king has also sent with him Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Benaniah the son of Jehoiada, the Cherethites, the Pelethites, and they have mounted him on the king's mule. So, yeah, Adonijah, this is like legit. This is you're in some trouble here. Just want to let you know that your little party here, yeah, it's just a fake. It's a fraud. That's the real deal going on over there. And it says this. They have anointed him king, furthermore, Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet have anointed him king in Gihon, and they have come up from their rejoicing, so that the city is going wild. The ground shook, is how wild it is. This is the noise which you have heard. Besides, Solomon has even taken his seat on the throne of the kingdom. It is official, like a ref with a whistle. Moreover, the king's servant came to bless our Lord, King David, saying, may your God make the name of Solomon better than your name, and his throne greater than your throne. And the king bowed himself on the bed, and the king has also said this, blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who has granted one to sit on my throne today while my own eyes see it. So David gave his affirmation. He gave his blessing. What do we see? 49, it says, all the guests, remember when they were just kind of like casually finishing their meals? Well, now it says all the guests of Adonijah trembled and got up, and each went his own way. Adonijah was also afraid of Solomon. They're like, oh no, we've been found out. Not good. Skedaddle. It's like when you turn on the lights and you got rats in the room and they're like scurrying away. That's this party. Adonijah's party got just, lights turned on, everyone skedaddled. Adonijah was also afraid. He got up and went and took hold of the horns of the altar. Now it was reported to Solomon, saying, behold, Adonijah is afraid of King Solomon, for behold, he has taken hold of the horns of the altar, saying, may King Solomon swear to me today that he will not put his servant to death with the sword. And so here's what's going on here. This was their version of sanctuary cities back in the day. If someone was in trouble, in peril, they would go to the temple, grab hold of the altar, and be like, you can't pull me out of here. You can't kill me. This is sacred, holy ground, and I'm not leaving here until I have a promise and your word that I'm not going to die. And so Adonijah, a smart man, is like, grabbing on. He's like, I'm not letting go until I hear from Solomon that I'm not going to die. And so that's what's going on. And so it's told to Solomon, and Solomon 52 said, if he is a worthy man, so ultimatum, you got A or B. If he is a worthy man, not one of his hairs will fall, of his head will fall to the ground. So if he's worthy, if he's good, if you don't mess around, you'll be just fine. However, but if wickedness is found in him, he will die. So don't mess around. Either be a good boy and you'll be fine. You're a bad boy, you're not going to be fine. We're going to find out he's going to be a bad boy. Spoiler alert. 53. So Solomon sent men, and they brought him down from the altar, and he came and prostrated himself before King Solomon. And Solomon said to him, go to your house. Go home. You're good. Be a good boy. And that's where the chapter ends. That's where we'll end. So just the themes, let's rehash those one more time. The danger of presumption. Remember, we need to walk with God or follow behind God. Don't get out in front of God and try to take matters into your own hands or force God to follow you. That never ends well. We'll see for Adonijah, doesn't end well. Walk with God, humbly with God. Next, we saw the courage of Nathan and Bathsheba. We need to follow the example of these two, especially Nathan. Remember the power of asking questions, and remember how to properly raise awareness with facts, with respect and peace, with boldness and courage. And then lastly, we saw the start of the establishment of this new kingdom with Solomon. This section is setting the stage for the transfer of power to Solomon. It just happened, and we're going to see Solomon really take the throne and start running next chapter. And so, again, the transition from David, the man of war, to Solomon, the man of peace. I will say this, just a final thought and a final question. What does this chapter teach us about God's faithfulness to his word, even when human circumstances look chaotic, right? Here, Solomon could have been panicking, and Nathan and Bathsheba could have been panicking, be like, oh no. But God has said in his word and given us promises. And so we need to understand that God is in control. Actually, in the words of the song by Mac Brock, the chorus goes, our God is still in control, and still he reigns on his throne. Though mountains may tremble and sea billows roll, I'll sing, it is well with my soul. My God is still in control. We need to have that in our minds, knowing that God is in control. When things seem chaotic, God is still in control. We live in a time where things are a little bit chaotic. God is still in control. Mountains may crumble, sea billows roll. We can sing, it is well with our soul, because God is still in control.